David Gant, a disgruntled armored car supervisor. Kelly Campbell, a former co-worker who lures David into the heist. Steve Chambers, the mastermind behind the heist. A local criminal. The year was 1997. David Gant was a man adrift. A leaf caught in the wind of a life that never seemed to go his way. He worked as a supervisor for Loomis Fargo, an armored car company, responsible for transporting millions of dollars between banks. 16 hours a day he was surrounded by more money than he could dream of. Yet his own pockets remained stubbornly empty. David was not an unhappy man, not exactly. He had a routine, a comfortable, if monotonous rhythm to his days. But beneath the surface a quiet dissatisfaction churned. He felt like a cog in a machine, a nameless face guarding fortunes that would never be his. His salary was a meager $8 an hour, a pittance compared to the wealth he oversaw. He had dreams, of course, dreams of a different life, a life of adventure and ease. But those dreams were always stifled by the weight of responsibility and the ingrained sense of honesty that had been instilled in him since childhood. How long could he keep ignoring his dreams? Then came Kelly Campbell. She was a former co-worker at Loomis Fargo, a spark of vibrancy in the dull gray of David's existence. Kelly had a way of making him feel seen, of recognizing the untapped potential that he himself had almost forgotten. They became friends, sharing stories and jokes during their breaks, and David found himself drawn to her easy charm and infectious laughter. Kelly, however, was in cahoots with Steve Chambers, a local criminal with a penchant for grand schemes and a distinct lack of morals. Steve saw David as the perfect pawn in his next big score, robbing the Loomis Fargo vault. At first David brushed off Kelly's hints and suggestions. He was a law-abiding citizen, a man of integrity. The idea of stealing millions of dollars was not only terrifying, but fundamentally against everything he believed in. But Kelly was persistent and Steve was persuasive. They painted a picture of a life free from financial worries, a life of luxury and excitement. They preyed on David's dissatisfaction, his yearning for something more. They whispered promises of a new beginning, a chance to escape the drudgery of his current existence. The seed of doubt had been planted, and it began to grow. David started to see the flaws in his own logic, the hypocrisy of guarding money he could never have. While struggling to make ends meet, he thought about his dreams, about the possibility of finally living the life he had always imagined. The plan was simple in theory. David, with his intimate knowledge of Loomis Fargo security protocols, would load millions of dollars into the company van and drive away. He would then meet Steve and Kelly at a designated location, hand over the money and disappear. It was a one-time thing, they assured him. A clean break. He would be given a cut of the loot, enough to start a new life somewhere far away, and no one would ever suspect a thing. The day of the heist arrived, a day that would forever alter the course of David's life. He felt a strange mix of fear and excitement. As he walked into the Loomis Fargo building, he went through the motions, performing his duties with a practiced ease, all the while knowing that this would be the last time he did so. As he approached the vault, his heart pounded in his chest. He entered the code, the familiar beeps echoing in the sterile room. The heavy door swung open, revealing stacks of cash neatly bundled and waiting to be taken. David hesitated for a moment, the weight of his decision pressing down on him. He could still turn back, walk away and pretend that none of this had ever happened. But the lure of a new life, the promise of freedom, was too strong to resist. With trembling hands he began to load the money into the van. Millions of dollars, more than he had ever seen in his life, were now under his control. He closed the doors, started the engine and drove away, leaving behind the life he knew, and embarking on a journey into the unknown. The heist went off without a hitch. David met Steve and Kelly, handed over the money and received his share. He then fled the country, following their instructions to lay low and avoid detection. But things quickly began to unravel. Steve, greedy and paranoid, decided that David knew too much and was a liability. He hired a hitman to eliminate David, ensuring his silence forever. David, however, was not as naive as Steve believed. He sensed the danger and managed to evade the hitman, going on the run and becoming an international fugitive. Meanwhile, back in the United States, the FBI was hot on the trail of the Loomis Fargo robbers. The heist had made national news, and the agency was under immense pressure to bring the perpetrators to justice. The investigation led them to Steve and Kelly, who were living lavishly off the stolen money. But David remained elusive. a ghost in the wind constantly moving and changing his identity. The game of cat and mouse continued for months, with David narrowly escaping capture on several occasions. He was living a life of constant fear, never knowing who he could trust or when his luck would run out. But David was not without resources. He had hidden a portion of the stolen money, enough to keep him afloat and help him stay one step ahead of his pursuers. He also had a growing determination to clear his name and bring Steve and Kelly to justice. In a twist of fate, David was helped by an unlikely ally. His former fiancée, despite being hurt and betrayed by his actions, she still cared for him and believed in his inherent goodness. She provided him with information and support, helping him to expose Steve and Kelly's crimes. The climax arrived in a dramatic showdown. David, with the help of the FBI, confronted Steve and Kelly, leading to their arrest and the recovery of the remaining stolen money. David was also taken into custody, but his cooperation with the authorities and his remorse for his actions earned him a reduced sentence. He served his time, paid his debt to society, and emerged a changed man. The story of David Gant and the Loomis Fargo heist became a legend, a tale of greed, betrayal, and redemption. It was a story that captured the imagination of the public and served as a cautionary tale about the dangers of chasing easy money and the importance of staying true to oneself.